Om Dare Du Dare Du Re Soha. Om Dare Du Dare Du Re Soha. Om Dare Du Dare Du Re Soha. Om Dare Du Dare.
All right. So the last 2 weeks, I recorded the teachings in the morning as I was traveling. And I hear that you all had some pretty good discussions around the biggest mental affliction that we might have been working on over the week. And then last week, we talked about how we can use our minds in a clear, analytical way to purify obscurations, to purify misperceptions, to purify negativities, went through the 4 opponent powers. So before I return to the text, I did just want to check in and see if anyone had some questions or thoughts or things that they wanted to check in on from the last 2 weeks. So I will pause and sip my tea and see if anyone does. If so, if you're online, you can just unmute. If you're here, you can just talk. Well, okay, that clears things up. So I guess when I'm here, we don't talk. And when I leave, you guys have great discussions.
I think that's okay.
Yeah, that's the way it works. I'll leave more often. So let me pop up the text. So again, if you are just joining us, maybe you'd missed the last couple of weeks, we've been going through this text on approaching the Buddhist path. This is this really massive endeavor with Thubten Chodron, His Holiness 14th Dalai Lama, and many others to bring these Lam Rim stages of the path to enlightenment teachings to a Western mind, to really clarify some of the differences in maybe a Western mind approaching this versus a Tibetan mind raised in a culture that was very different than ours. And so the first volume of this, and I think there's 7 to 9 volumes at this point, is really around clarifying those differences. And so we've been working on afflictions and emotions, identifying what a Buddhist perspective would be on a, let's say, a healthy emotion or an unhealthy emotion, destructive and so forth, that we might use these different words, and recognizing the emotions that arise within us can all be helpful. It's how we interact with them that would make it beneficial or not. So that's what we've been going through. And we had 2 weeks ago, the homework is to kind of work on our biggest affliction. Like, what's the main thing that is really preventing me from engaging in my life in ways that are more meaningful, joyful, more clear, more accurate? What is that big affliction? So I know that, what I heard was that you had a pretty good discussion around working with that. And then last week we went into purifying the mind, and that's pretty much where we're at, is how do we use our mind in a healthy way to overcome some of the misperception that give rise to a lot of the mental states of like anger, resentment, jealousy, and so forth. So that's where we're at. Having said that, I will pop up actually, I need to get the text available, and then I'll pop it up. Yep, okay, it is there. There we go. So one of the things that sometimes misunderstood about Buddhism, and people can go maybe too far one way or not nearly far enough another, is the the idea of practice. There's practices and there's teachings and there's rituals. And sometimes those all kind of get thrown into one category. As if I do a bunch of rituals, certain things will happen. If I do a lot of teaching, certain things will happen. But as we've talked about before, there's 3 wisdoms. And here's where practice comes into play. There's the wisdom of receiving a teaching. That's reading a teaching. It's hearing a teaching, receiving it, basically. And as many of us know, that can that can leave us in about an hour, if we make it that far. And then there's the wisdom of really contemplation, analyzing the teaching, wisdom of analyzing, of contemplating, of analysis. And that's what we've been working with a bit now, is really poking at a teaching. Does it work? Does it apply? Does it make sense? Does it hold up? Let me check it from this side. Is it true that these mental afflicted states that I experience arise from misunderstanding or misperception? Well, it's true or it's not. We can look, we can check it out. We can see if we can find an exception to the rule. And if we do that, we're going to have a much greater wisdom, something that will last a little longer. And then the third wisdom is the wisdom of meditation, where we gain some sense of realization, and then we can really sit with that, let it soak into our consciousness. And so the second and third part are where we can apply these teachings in our daily lives and see what arises, and then see if we can really let that sink in. The purification practice is an opportunity to really combine the realization of analytical process with the third wisdom of meditation. But that all requires practice, and much more so than just sitting on a cushion. And so understanding how do we bring this into our life in a way that can transform our minds is really the critical process. How do I leave the Dharma Center and apply these teachings in my daily life in ways that are meaningful, which requires some practice. I'm going to jump to this next paragraph here. I'm just going to jump in the middle here. This is a wrong view. Will not make either of these disappear, talking about the wrong view of absolutism or nihilism. Nor are prayers and virtuous aspirations sufficient to vanquish them. So us just knowing something's not right or talking about a good philosophical conversation is not really going to counteract misperception. We have to counteract them directly by developing the wisdom or intelligence that understands reality. Absolutism and nihilism arise through thought processes, so they need to be counteracted through correct reasoning that shatters our previous certainty. As our understanding deepens, our wisdom will become the direct non-conceptual perception of the nature of reality. So ultimately, that's where we want to get to. And the problem is some people just want to skip everything else and get to that. And that can be a problem. We need to be where we are and cultivate this understanding in a process. So if I go from understanding that, I'm having a human experience, I can identify more with my awareness, I can see how thoughts, emotions arise, I can understand that that's not me, it's just what I'm experiencing, I'm arising moment to moment. and that everything I'm experiencing is subjective and dependently arising. It's all nice, and I can recognize that all of that arises as an experience of mine, but it's not who I am. It's not how things ultimately exist, and just jump to a whole bunch of meditations on emptiness without actually bringing that into, can I be nice to my neighbor? Am I generous? It was my attention with the people in my life that I come in contact with. Am I watering and nurturing my heart in a way that's meaningful and understands this connection? Am I using this human life in a way that's meaningful and cultivating and understanding the cause of these afflicted states instead of just, I'm not these afflicted states? Then, what happens in a pretty sterile practice, a lot of times they talk about like pouring water on a rock, like can be really good in this non-dual state of experience, but still struggle with getting along with relatives at Christmas time. Wow, that can be, was the real test. Somebody, good quote was, if you want to check your practice, go spend, some time with your relatives, because we have some entrenched stuff that will pop up. So the journey then is what's being shared here. It's helpful to be aware of the mental processes that lie behind the emotions. We may have habitual ways of interpreting events that make them appear threatening or desirable when they are not. So that's what we're imputing upon the qualities of events. I like this, don't like that. This is threatening, or this is really going to make me happy. If so, we can consciously begin to change our interpretations and thus change the emotions that result from them. This is the theory behind the thought training teachings, such as those describing on how to transform adversity into the path of awakening. So those are the Lojo mind training teachings that we emphasize. So the main point here is that if I change my relationship with this experience, different emotions will arise. And so in our consciousness, we have a lot of premeditated sort of responses. I commonly will use, seeing the bumper sticker of the person, of something you totally don't believe in, or it's terrible, and just how quickly that can trigger an emotion. Somebody has that bumper sticker on their car, it's just anti whatever it is that you believe in, and just instantly an emotion can arise, and this person's just just such a jerk, and what an idiot they are, and how are they thinking like that. I haven't met the person, I don't even know if it's their car. And I'm totally missing the point that if it is their car and it is their bumper sticker, that from their side, those things make sense to another human being based on their conditioning and their experience. And I may even forget that in my own life, this may sound shocking, I used to believe a lot of things that I don't believe today. Like, I've had some views in my life in the past that are pretty counter to how I am today. But I see the bumper sticker, bam, this person's this kind of, whatever kind of person, instantly it's filled in. So this is something that is so quick in our lives, so fast. That person's a jerk, whatever it is that just can just pop up. Boy, they spoke to me in a patronizing way, and miss the subjective nature of it and what I'm attending to about this person, how I can misread another human being who is also like me, trying to find happiness and has their own conditioning and so forth. And they're all offering me an opportunity to see my mind, see what arises, something to work with. Now, that's pretty much out the window, though, when you're just day to day and triggered and responding or reacting or labeling it. It doesn't have to be a strong emotion. It's just a quick judgment. Now, if I shift how I attend to that, emotions will change, right? So just the real simple thing is, am I paying attention to everything that I have to be grateful for in my life? Food, clothing, do I have a toothache right now? No, pretty cool. Can I see, am I able to, have shelter tonight? Am I not living in the Ukraine right now and when, in fear of drone attacks? Am I able to walk? Can I see? Do I have vision? Do I have support? I mean, the list of things to be grateful for in my life is, generally pretty vast. And if I attend to that, then how I'm going to experience other people is going to be a very different emotion. So just changing my perspective changes that emotion. Changing my view has a different experience, result. So I think we can get that. Then that just becomes a practice. And the point is to bring the more accurate view, not a Pollyanna view. It's all good. It's not all good. There's a lot of difficulty, a lot of challenge, a lot of violence, a lot of adversity in this world. And how can I recognize how it arises, how I'm experiencing it, and how I can engage with it in ways that are productive? So this becomes the journey, is bringing more wisdom into how I'm experiencing the world, how I'm experiencing myself, how I'm attaching to people, places, things, events, as though they can really bring me the happiness I seek, or that they're causing me the mental, emotional suffering, and totally miss the idea that suffering's here, not there. Joy is here, not there. And that there's an interdependent experience that we're having. Something catalyzes the joy or the fear based on my belief system around it. So having said all that, then, how do I work with this? They use an example in here how we can commonly, I'll get into this, an example of how we can project onto a person. A colleague offers to help us with a project, and we think, why all of a sudden? Does he want? Well, why? Sorry, I paused inappropriately there. Why all of a sudden does he want to join in? Does he want some of the credit for himself? Or maybe he wants to slow down my work so that our boss will be upset with me. It's totally threatening. Although we're not trained psychologists, we may even attribute a mental disorder. This guy is passive aggressive and he's manipulating me because he wants my job. We are mind reading, projecting a motivation to someone's action with little evidence, becoming suspicious and hostile. We respond with a snide remark and a conflict takes off. Unfortunately, many misunderstandings and arguments among people, groups, and nations occur in this way. And that's, when we really believe we can see someone's motives. And, sometimes we're close, sometimes we're far off. And lots of times I've been way off. And so the opportunity here is, how can I live more accurately with others? And one of the things in my own life is I've really tried to catch myself when I'm mind reading. And just instead of responding in a way that, I think I'm reading a situation, respond to what they told me. This is what they said. So let me respond in a healthy way based on what they said, and really try to stop my mind reading processes. That they really need me to do this, or they want me that, or they're doing this because they like that. And ask if I need some clarity. And that's been a big game changer. Really helped me in teaching high school. Because, man, I could attribute a lot of motives and intentions to my students and teachers. So there's these things that we want to check. For example, do I judge? Do I mind read? Do I attribute motivations to people? Do I place actual labels that a psychologist might put on a person, like I'm actually qualified to do that? And, do I keep putting people in a box, and then once they're in that box, respond to that? Or am I more capable of recognizing that every person, everything I'm doing is a dependently arising experience, and it's a moment that's arising in a particular way for a lot of reasons, and what's the healthiest way to engage in this moment? Knowing that everything's fluid, that I'm becoming in each moment, they're becoming in a moment. Nobody's stuck, nobody's fixed, nobody is a jerk 24 hours a day their whole life. Nobody's generous 24 hours a day their whole life. People arise in dependence upon their experience, their struggles, and at times can be generous, at times can be a jerk, at times can be kind, at times can be spiteful, as am I. And is this a more accurate way of experiencing people or not? Or do we also carry within ourselves, I'm a good person, or, I have a lot to work on, not such a good person. As I mean, last night, person was, just struggling with the idea of, am I really a good person? Could I be a good person? When, am I a human being who is sometimes very patient and sometimes not so patient? And those times are not who I am, it's how I'm arising in dependence upon the situation of that moment. And so the point being is, I'm arising moment to moment in dependence upon the situation. And a lot of that has to do with my own conditioning. A lot of it has to do with whether I get sleep last night. A lot of it has to do with what I'm attending to about the moment or the person. It has to do with the kind of mind I'm bringing to a moment. But I'll forget all that and just, react to, how this moment's hitting me. And so the journey here is to start not just having this discussion, but start bringing a more accurate view of interdependence, of impermanence, of becoming into the moments of our lives in ways that are hopefully more accurate, and see if that eliminates a lot of my mentally afflicted states or not. If it will or it won't. But talking about won't do it, and wishing it away won't do it. And His Holiness here will be also bringing up the points that praying the Buddha to take away my affliction is not going to do it. I need to start consciously engaging in life in this way more accurately. And then in the next part, with much more kindness and compassion, cultivating the merit, spiritual merit, to really grow. Pausing there, anybody has any thoughts or comments? Y'all are killing me. Is that an accurate statement? No.
Oh, I unmuted, but I didn't raise my hand.
There you go.
So when you're talking about kind of putting people in a box, attributing motivations, there's a person in my life who triggers me probably more than anybody else. And I find myself constantly attributing ill will from his side to me. When I look back at it, I'm like, oh, that he most of the time I don't think was coming from a position of wishing me ill will in his interactions. But I find it so difficult to adjust my understanding of his motivations. And I've just, and this is true with everything. And, I think you're kind of, getting at this, is it just, it takes a certain technique to practice, but I just find it curious that, we can understand in an intellectual capacity that what we're doing probably isn't accurate, but still not be able to manifest that or incorporate it into our lives.
Yeah, thank you, Carla. And that there's a process, right, of doing it. So, for example, everything you're sharing now about your wisdom and how you interact, it sounds like it's probably more skillful than it used to be. Is that correct?
I'm not so sure. I think, well, yes, okay. I'm actually giving him the benefit of doubt and recognizing that he's not coming from 100% space of ill will. So yeah, in that respect, yes.
That's improvement.
I'm starting to, yeah, it is an improvement. I don't think it's to the point yet where I'm able to adjust my behavior on the spot, but yeah. I'm at least recognizing it. So yeah, that's an improvement.
Right. And, just what you're able to share now is improvement, right? Whereas in the past, it's pretty easy for me to have a conversation and say, so-and-so's a jerk. They're always trying to do this or that. And we say that, right? They're always trying to do that, or they're a liar, or they're dishonest, or, whatever. Their lips are moving, they're lying. And wow, just the idea that, they're not like that all the time. And maybe I'm misjudging. And having that openness, that's all progress. And I think you're highlighting the point that His Holiness and Thubten children are making here, is that it's going to take an effort to undo those habits and those tendencies to look more deeply and see that person more accurately, experience that person more accurately, which is what I think you're describing. Appreciate that. Jamie.
I have a kind of different side of the coin, I guess. I feel like some of these practices, I'm starting to understand other people's suffering and feel that, I guess. And I work in a industry where it's it's definitely seen as kind of weakness. We're supposed to hide that all the time, and walk around like we're good. But I feel like it's like palpable with some of my coworkers, but I want to be able to be open to help them through it, I guess. And I'm finding that, a bit of a challenge, I guess, for myself, just how to be open, create that kind of, safe spot. I can see it, I can feel it, but I can't necessarily access it or, create the space where they can feel comfortable enough to, to allow some of that to come out in a healthy way, I guess.
Yeah. So if I'm hearing correctly, you're recognizing their own struggle, their own suffering, and how it's manifesting. And then it can be challenging to create a space about how to help them. Am I on the right track there?
Yeah. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, one of the big challenges I think that also happens as we engage in a path and we start understanding things more, and our empathy grows and our compassion and our understanding that people are acting out in harmful ways because they're suffering. Nobody's yelling at you because they're happy. Is as we have that empathy and then, a sense of powerlessness, and then it can be quite painful to open yourself up to see the struggles of the world. And a common misplaced view on compassion is if I am compassionate, I'm going to suffer a lot, right? If I'm compassionate, I'm going to experience this pain. And that's where empathy and compassion get very confused. Compassion arises as a result of the pain, right? Compassion is, I would like to remove the pain. So the pain, the suffering is there first, the recognition of it's first. And then compassion that arises is, how do I work with this in the healthiest way, in a way that can eliminate some suffering? So compassion is really this force, this energy, this wisdom that arises in recognizing the pain. And so as we get a little healthier, we see things a little more accurately, and we see others struggle so much, it can be very difficult. It's kind of my view a long time ago was, seeing everyone, suffer so needlessly is my thought, which again didn't hold up. It's like watch them just stab themselves with a fork in the eye all day long, and you just, and I feel like, wow, they don't need to do this. They don't need to suffer this way. And that's missing the boat, is that I got to be who I am today because of enough suffering and struggle in my life allowed me to seek out a way to lessen the suffering in my life. The Buddha and all of his teachings, he noticed and became aware of the suffering. And then he sought a path of no more suffering. And so understanding that people are going through their struggles and their difficulties is actually part of their potential for awakening, for understanding. And often they're serving a purpose for you to cultivate that compassion, to cultivate more understanding. And in my journey, personally, how I work with situations like that, where I'm surrounded by a lot of it, and the advice I offer all the time is never underestimate the power of being a good example. In other words, as you become healthier, more compassionate, more skillful in your interactions, you will become more capable over time of affecting people in ways that you don't even know. And at some point, some people that you thought, would never, be able to open up in any way, 20 years from now, calls you and says, can you help me with this? That this becomes palpable as you notice their struggle, others notice your ease, others notice the way that you carry yourself. And for those people who are ripe in particular ways, there'll be a potential of receptivity, but also there's the long game, that you are planting seeds in the minds of others that there are other ways to live as you carry yourself with a little more clarity, a little more understanding, a little more patience, a little more kindness, and that it is this long game. But as we open ourselves empathetically, it can go to hopelessness or it can go to compassion. So if we can shift that to compassion, compassion then asks the bigger question: what's the healthiest thing to do in this situation? And it brings in that wisdom of this collective conditioning that people have throughout their lives, and that people need, and they're going through things for a reason. And how can I meet them where they're at in this situation? Sometimes it's actually, having a boundary. Sometimes it's, giving a kind ear. Sometimes it's, expressing an appreciation. But understanding that I can't take away someone's suffering, but I can be an example and create some conditions from which, over time, certain people will have an opportunity to transform, and we can plant those seeds.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. In a setting like healthcare and teaching and things like that can sometimes be a bit overwhelming, but over time, the difference is made. Okay, so we have a little more time. I'm going to jump in a little bit here. Because here's the other piece that is so critical. In addition to developing our human intelligence and learning to use our logical abilities correctly, we need to make our mind receptive so that the seeds of constructive emotions and attitudes can grow within it. This is kind of going to the point there. We do this by engaging in spiritual practices that diminish and purify the seeds of harmful deeds in our mind stream. In addition, practices that accumulate merit, seeds of constructive karma, virtue, basically, good virtuous activity, increase the force of our wholesome tendencies. These practices include being generous, living ethically, and cultivating loving kindness. One more paragraph. Learning how to consciously direct our thoughts in a more positive way is essential for counteracting afflictive mental states. So not just the wisdom, but really a positive way. It's based in reality, but it's also based in loving kindness and compassion. Repeating, anger is awful, may it disappear, or compassion is wonderful, I wish I had it, isn't sufficient to transform our minds. Praying, Buddha, please inspire me to be compassionate, or Buddha, please get rid of my afflictions, without our cultivating the causes won't work either. To be free of our anger, we must contemplate the kindness of others and train our mind in forgiveness and love by practicing the meditations that evoke these virtuous emotions. While thinking about the value of compassion and requesting inspiration to develop it are useful, the real work is to contemplate the benefits of compassion and then practice the series of meditations to generate it. So I'm mentioning the Lama sort of analytical meditations there. In our daily lives too, we must repeatedly bring compassion to mind when we interact with others so that it becomes habitual. So the point here is that as I was trying to tie together at the start, there's rituals, right? So we can do rituals, and rituals can be very helpful to ripen the mind. There's practices that we can do, which can be helpful, train the mind. There's meditations that we can do within practice. And there's teachings that we can receive. And but rituals without teaching and context and practice aren't going to be that helpful. And so some people will say, for example, if you say this mantra so many times, that's going to purify your mind. It's going to do this or it's going to do that. And someone could have a nice devotional practice to that, but without understanding, well, how's that going to work, and how does that apply to, a mind that is caught up in misperception? If I understand mantras are mind protection and they're bringing your mind to a virtuous thought, and how that's going to work, and how's that fit into a context. It's not the mala and it's not the mantra. It's the collection of wisdom around the teaching combined with the practice and understanding of interdependence, the motivation that one brings to a mantra and a practice. Then, that's going to have some meaning and some real transformative value. Likewise with a practice of meditation, I have experienced to know people that are great meditators that have a very short fuse when interacting with others, and will even get angry and frustrated if they're trying to meditate and somebody's outside causing noise. That's not so helpful. And then teachings as well. People can get very scholarly, but have not really turned the mind in any productive way. And so what's being shared here is to bring them together. That if I receive a teaching, then I try to bring that into my world, try to experience causes, try to do my best to have a little more patience, a little more understanding. Notice how I can respond. What can I do that's virtuous? How can I bring a mind of loving kindness and compassion, which basically is a commitment to interact in the healthiest possible way with people and humans and what I'm doing, and what can I do that might be of benefit? How can I be helpful? Bringing that mind. And what's my life different if I have that mind? Is it Father Boyle, right? Homeboy Industries, the priest down in the difficult areas of LA. Really, just incredible being that works with these criminals that, former criminals who come out of prison, give them a job, help them change their lives. Somebody asked them, aren't you worried about them taking advantage of you? And he said, they can't take advantage of me. I give my advantage away, give my advantage away. I do it freely. You can't take something I'm giving freely. Well, it's pretty hard to get, pretty offended with that kind of attitude. And if I understand that everyone I'm encountering is offering me an opportunity to cultivate my heart and mind in a way that's meaningful, and, I'm not going to suffer as much. And so these are the kinds of attitudes that we can apply in our lives a little more frequently and see how it transforms our emotions, our afflictive states. But all of them are rooted in truth. And that's the key. Basically, the Buddha taught wisdom, truth is what liberates us. And our mental and emotional afflictions arise from misperception, from really attributing qualities to people, places, and things that are not inherently within them. And if I can understand that, how I'm arising independent spawn, I'm not solid and stuck and, not the person I was 10 years ago, won't be the same person tomorrow. That I'm always becoming, and I have agency in how I become. Wow, there's a lot of freedom, a lot of liberation there. And I'm not angry, I'm experiencing anger. And it's temporary. I'm still going to be here when all that comes and goes. How do I respond in a way that's meaningful? So I think that's a good place to pause. We're coming up to the top of the hour here. And any thoughts or questions on that, what we've covered so far? Or I encourage a combination of the practice last couple weeks. This is a time where I should just leave the room, right? And say, why don't y'all have a discussion amongst yourselves? Busting up there. All right. Carla, you're always my savior. And then Rita.
Oh, there we go. That's I guess instigating conversation is my role in life. So from the last couple of weeks, you're talking about trying to find one of our most destructive habit patterns or emotions. And I'm not sure how refined to try and dig that up. Like just saying, anger, frustration, irritation, I feel like is one of mine. Is that a little bit too broad of a brush? Or is that?
Actually, anger, frustration, irritation are all in the spectrum of anger.
Right.
So, anger goes from, slight annoyance all the way up to rage. And they're all in the anger form. So irritation, frustration, that's all part of anger.
Yeah. Is that
that's
like,
not
is that the level of discernment that is helpful?
Yeah, anger is kind of that what you're talking about, the afflictive state of anger, and being aware that even annoyance is in that realm. And in general, from a Western psychological view, anger arises when it's perceived that someone or something is blocking what you want, basically. And so the counteracting antidote within Buddhism for anger most commonly is forbearance, or what we call patience. So the way to start with that is, is as we've talked about many times, Shanti Deva, be like wood, or, allow the anger to come and go, don't react. We apply forbearance, we apply patience. Where I like to get to is as quickly as possible is acceptance. And acceptance does not mean I approve. As Dusty, that's his thing there. I know he's not there now. Acceptance does not mean approval. Doesn't mean you like it. Doesn't mean that you. But the quicker I can get to that this is the way it is, now I'm in reality. And I can counteract the misperception that it should not be this way. That statement on its surface, just doesn't hold up. I don't like it this way. That's accurate. But things happen for reasons. These things are happening in experience, and they're all an opportunity for us to interact in a way that's meaningful. And so the process in working with even subtle frustration or annoyance all the way up to rage is beginning with the response of patience, cultivating patience and cultivating acceptance. And the key to working with anger is to work on it when you're not angry. When you're angry, it's already too late. Now we're doing damage control. So cultivating, like my suggestion would be cultivating acceptance throughout your day, or cultivating contentment throughout your day as an intention, bringing that to mind, cultivating contentment or acceptance more and more on purpose is going to eliminate more opportunities for anger to grow. The straightforward Buddhist approach would be also to set the intention on cultivating patience. So patience is forbearance. It's the ability to experience something that is uncomfortable or painful, mentally, emotionally, physically, and to be able to just experience it, let it come, let it go. And if you were to wake up and say every day, that's kind of my go-to is patience and acceptance. What I found is that I can more, as I cultivate patience with little things, it's available when the bigger things come. So working on anger when you're not angry, cultivating some patience and acceptance intentionally on purpose counteracts the seeds that give rise to anger. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
All right. We'll go Rita and then, okay. All right, Rita.
Thanks. And thanks, Carla, for sharing that, because I was I'm really curious what other people have come up with. I found that prompt really helpful and took it seriously and did some mulling over. And I think my biggest issue at the moment is procrastination. And I feel like I've become a little too patient and accepting with myself. And I'm curious what umbrella does procrastination fall under? And what's the antidote for me to cultivate? Would it be joyous effort?
Joyous effort sounds good. There's three, in Buddhism, they talk about three types of laziness. And that's helpful for me to kind of put, so procrastination, one form of laziness is I'm going to put it off. Another one is actually busyness. One of the forms of laziness is busyness. It is that, I'm putting, it's another way to procrastinate. I'm too busy to do that, right? I've got these other things to do. And so a lot of people will get caught up in all their things to do each day, and they're not doing the things that will actually change their life. And another form, I think, is attachment to pleasure, so sort of our attachments to pleasurable. I'd rather feel good doing this instead of doing that other thing. And so I guess what I'm pointing out there is what's helpful around what they call laziness is to see the different ways of me engaging in other activities or engaging in other things that are giving me a distraction or a temporary pleasure are actually undermining the very thing that will transform my life. And so I think you nailed it with joyous effort. Right. And now joyful effort is not always joyful in the moment. I think they used to call it perseverance initially. But if you were to set that as an attention, so that's been one of my practices of late. And, I get like way in the, folding the clothes, on the bed while Laura's up doing the thing. I'm going to get the clothes folded. I'm going to get the dishes done. Dishes have been done a lot lately, haven't they? I'm like all over the dishes. And, it's like, I get to do this and bringing a joy into it. And so one of my mindsets is I don't want to do things to get them done. Everybody's like, what? You do them because it's meaningful to do. In other words, most of our life is in the doing, not the done. As soon as it's done, then I'm doing something else. Our life is in the doing. So joyful effort, or as Mark Maloney would say, purposefully engaged, recognizes that whatever I'm doing is the most important thing to do right now. And what are the things that will, really be meaningful? And the interesting thing there is some of the things I might be procrastinating. Well, even in the other things I'm doing, if I'm doing them purposefully, they'll help change your life. And so Jetsuma Tenzin Palmo will talk about that, bringing that mind that whatever it is that I'm doing, do it as though that's the most important thing, because that's where you are, will change your life. So, but if you can bring that joyous effort into recognizing the value of what you're doing and how it feels when you do it, that you've done it, whether it's meditation, at the end of meditation, taking time. Are you glad that you meditated? How's that helpful? This is an opportunity as much as possible. And I think, you're dead on with joyous effort is recognizing and allowing yourself to feel good about the good that you do. The saying virtue is its own reward is to really allow yourself to feel good that you're doing something that's healthy that you may not like doing. Then the reward's there. But if it needs to look like this or get like that when it's done, virtue is its own reward. It doesn't matter what happens at the end. And so the more that you can engage in your life with the things that are beneficial. And then, of course, the other thing is the buddy program. It's nice to have some accountability if there's some things I want to do in my life, because if we can get some support with others, I think that's really helpful. A joyful effort, some accountability. I have some things that I'd like to do to improve my life, and it's kind of nice to, get some people to help me with that.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm sure nobody else can relate to laziness, procrastination.
It's never meditation. That's what I do sometimes instead of dishes.
Right. Yeah.
Just what Rita was saying about the procrastination and you bringing up the busyness. I find myself like cleaning the whole house because I don't want to sit down and do paperwork.
Yeah.
That's the one thing. I'd rather scrub toilets and do anything else than do paperwork. But what I was going to bring up before from what Carla said, with when others are getting angry or frustrated, and you need to be patient. With my school children that I teach, I've been using the word ignoring the other person when they get under your skin, but that really rang a bell that that's not the correct word to use, meaning like, oh, just don't let it bother you,
Mm-hmm.
but rather be patient with that other person. Or, I don't know, I'm trying to put it in terms of 5-year-olds rather than adults, what would be relevant for them, because they're constantly arguing over things or how to do things or tattling or getting under each other's skin, trying to teach them that subtle skill of just let it go.
Yeah. How do we explain that to a 5-year-old? The theory of acceptance and understanding of their own other person's condition versus how do we do our best to know that the other is not the important thing to attend to at the moment, instead of ignore, right?
Right, yeah.
What it might be more valuable for you to attend to your needs now, and that might be a nice way of shifting ignore to what would be valuable for them to pay attention to or to work on for themselves. Yeah, good luck with that.
Patience.
Yeah, as always. I teach high school, man, the little ones. That's a whole nother world. Yeah. And oh, go ahead. Dennis.
Finally, I have something to say. Thank you. I'm really grateful for all the teachings, even when I don't speak up. So thanks everyone for that. My question is, what has just occurred to me as I was listening, what do I do when somebody else is upset about something? And I think what we heard tonight is really helpful. I'm just going to be, I think I brought this up. I'm just going to be patient myself and be compassionate, be like what you said a few weeks ago. But when it still gets to me, sometimes it still gets to me. So I guess that's an important one for me, is wanting to do something when I see that somebody is upset. And it's hard to just leave it alone or let them stew in it. So I'm wondering if there's any further comment on that topic. Because I see it now. I did bring it up a while back, but again, it's coming back to me.
Mm-hmm. And now, are you talking about someone who's upset specifically with you, or you just see that they're struggling in some way?
No, not with me. It's totally like somebody at work or another family member or something like that they're really bothered about something else. I'm like,
yeah.
I'm not going to, like, if it was me, I would just like, I'm not going to take that on. But
Yeah.
they're bothered, and they're often bothered with someone else or something's bothering them. Like, oh, be equanimous. Like that. I have all this advice, but I'm not going to say be equanimous or whatever, because they're in it. And all I think I can do is what we've talked about tonight, is just be patient. And I took notes, all those other things, be patient.
Yeah. And, as you're saying, a lot of wisdom, some people will say, well, they shouldn't be upset, or, why don't I point out this simple thing, which of course is not the helpful thing to do. But validating someone's struggle, I think, helpful. And validating a struggle is validating that I can see that you're struggling with this. I can see that that's difficult. I'm sorry about that. And then, if they're in some place that, like, let's say they're complaining about something to you and they're really struggling, and validating and saying, wow, that must be difficult. Then, I like to invite the question, what do you think would be a healthy thing for you to do about that? And what that does is it shifts the mind from complaining to solution. And sometimes that might be an opportunity to kind of get that in there. But I think in general, as you would mention, being attentive and caring and understanding that people have their own struggles and sufferings for reasons, and it could be more beneficial than we know. We just don't want them to have to feel that way. Sometimes, though, that can be a really nice question. Is, after validating, after seeing that they're struggling, seeing that that's so difficult, what do you think would be a really healthy thing for you to do?
You mean actually asking them that?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to have to think about that one.
Only if it's in the right, comfort zone. That, if someone's complaining to me and going on, and you go, yeah, that's really difficult. Yeah, what do you think would be a really healthy thing to do about that? If it's appropriate. Is the shift goes from complaining and blaming to solution. And the word healthy is so objective. It's not what's the right thing to do, what's the best thing to do. It's none of that. What's the healthy? It's an objective question that sometimes can be tough. Not tough. Can be better than things like, what should you do about that? What would you like to do about that? What would be healthy? It's just this very neutral place that can shift a mind to what would be healthy. All right, Keith, Or Kurt, one of you two.
It's Keith.
Okay.
Good evening. Thanks, John. Just back to the discussion about anger, irritation, annoyance. Something that helps me, and I've helped other people with it too, is when those feelings are arising in that anger area, just asking myself or ask yourself the question, what might I be resisting or not accepting in this situation right now? And first of all, just asking the question, if you have enough mindfulness going on, just asking the question and developing that curiosity is a little shift of gears for me out of the emotional reaction, and to look at it with a question instead. And then, identifying the resistance and what might I not be accepting here. And then when I can identify that, then it leads the way towards a solution for that, is start working towards some acceptance. And possibly, is there something I can change about the situation as well? So there was that. And then, this emotion exercise is good. I know it's helped me zero in. A big part of my healing journey and my path for myself personally is healing from a lot of post-traumatic stress from my childhood, and that manifests definitely in waves of anxiety for me. With this practice and other things I've done, my anxiety has definitely improved. There's a lot more calm and ease in my life than there used to be, and it can still plague me at times and get in the way of a lot. And so I still haven't gone to wherever the list of the antidotes are for all the feelings. I don't know if it's on Way of Compassion now or if it's on the other website, but what I've been doing with this more specifically lately is working on calm and ease when I feel that that anxiety surfacing in me, breathing and focusing on calm and ease. Also focusing on, again, just being a little more objective and curious with myself, because that anxiety has a feeling like there's a threat, right? There's some kind of a danger, a threat. And first to identify that I'm okay, there is no true and real threat, and kind of go through that process. And also to look at my thoughts, like what thoughts, and this has been quite a revelation for me, some of the thoughts that were hidden from me that in this generalized anxiety, the experience of it is this anxiety just kind of arises from nowhere, and I'm hit with this wave of it. And the mindful meditation and practice has helped me to really identify some very specific thoughts that are coming up that are fueling that anxiety and keeping it going. And so I get to look at those thoughts now and, kind of challenge them with the 4 mindfulness questions. What am I thinking? Why am I thinking it? Is it a healthy and beneficial thought? And is it grounded in reality? And that's been a helpful process too. So I'm a work in progress, and just going to continue with my process on that. So thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Keith. Now we're coming to the end here. One thing that's just come to mind, and Carla's and others I think might find this beneficial. By the way, the antidotes were posted on the Way of Compassion Dharma Center community. I posted it right after the teaching, and we can repost it again. So try to remember to do that again tomorrow morning. But it should be there on the feed. The platform changed, so it might be a little harder to find it on the feed. Yeah, but if you click on Way of Compassion Dharma Center down on the menu on the left, and then the feed, scroll down, it should be there, but I'll try to repost. So there is a meditation. It's a short version. It's something that been adapted out of the 4 opponent powers of purification. It's called just transforming unskillful events. So it's a 10-minute meditation, and it's designed to bring to mind a specific event, a way that, like, so I'm a person that frustrates me, or that's not the way it works, right? A person I get triggered by, I experience frustration, right? And so you bring the situation to mind, and in the short meditation that you feel the sensations and you explore, what's really causing it. And then you ask yourself, what would be a healthy way, a beneficial way to respond next time I feel like this? And you practice that in the 10-minute meditation. And so that's the outline of what's being expressed here within the text, is to bring it into a meditation and practice that. And what I found in my own life, that when I did that on a daily basis, and in my case, I had a coworker that I really struggled with, by the end of my career with him, I had a lot of respect, a lot of just a whole different relationship. And it's a 10-minute meditation. I will post that on the community. So it's really intelligent regret and a resolve out of the 4 opponent powers, done in a 10-minute meditation. So I'll post that, and I'll encourage people. And what I was going to say is, let's continue picking that one main afflictive state or habit, or and work on that. And then, we have the 4 opponent powers. But if you find that this 10-minute transforming unskillful events, and work with that specific affliction and see how that works out for the week. How's that sound? All right, I see a few nods, and hopefully not the kind of nods that fall asleep. All right, let's go ahead and dedicate the merit that we have cultivated during our time together. I will bring up our dedication. Such a gift to be here, to engage with each other, to support each other in cultivating qualities of wisdom and compassion in this path of liberation for the benefit of all beings. Let us dedicate this merit in wisdom that we have cultivated. By this merit, may I soon attain the enlightened state of Guru Buddha, that I may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their sufferings. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore.
Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha.